welcome back to another episode of Commentators Corner. This is number 3. It's been 2 weeks since me, Tyler Reedy, and Brendan Prizeman to my right this time have joined you, but we're back. The prep football team is back after 2 weeks of quarantine, so an exciting week for sure.
As long as we don't talk about the NBA yet,
Yep.
I'll be happy with whatever.
Yep, your Clippers going.
Wound is still raw.
Yep, for sure.
Give me another week or so, and I'll be able to talk about it.
Yep.
Maybe by the time the finals start, I'll be like, yeah, the Clippers, they blew it again, yeah. But not right now.
Yeah, at least Texas got a big win for you, so kind of a bittersweet week.
And we've got prep football to talk about, so that's always good.
Yeah, so Friday night, September 4th, they beat the Papillion La Vista Monarchs on the road by a score of 21-16. Early on, 2 field goals from Pat Foley, and then 2 touchdowns in the second half, one from A.J. Rollins through the air, and then Max Sanders on the ground. And on the final drive for Papillion La Vista, Alex Bullock came up with his second interception of the game to close it out, seal the victory for Prep, so they improved to 1-1. But then the day after, we hear the news that Prep's got a player testing positive for coronavirus, so they go into quarantine for 10 days, but that 10-day stretch is over and they're back and ready to go.
Yep. They certainly are, and Bullock wasn't just clutch on the defensive side, too. He made a couple big plays on Prep scoring drives as well. I remember looking at one of the game summaries, it said that he had like a long punt return to set up the first one, and he had a big catch to set up first and goal on the Sanders touchdown run. And, you know, the 10-day quarantine isn't all bad. I was talking to the offensive coordinator, Mr. Fife, the other day, and he mentioned that it's actually been pretty good for them because a couple of banged-up players like Jack Stessman, they'll be coming back. They'll be healthy. Stessman will be playing. Vinny Cassioppo will start practicing with the team again, the senior running back who's been out with an ankle injury. And he also said that the coaches have been kind of refining and retooling the offense, figuring out what's worked for them in the past couple weeks and starting to use that more.
Yeah, and there were some big positives that came out of the Papio game. You mentioned Alex Bullock with the monster game. It was really his night. But then the defense as well. Papio's running back, Cole Price, had 184 yards, 3 touchdowns on 6.5 yards per carry in week 1. Week 2 against Prep, he's held to 89 yards and only 3 per carry. So that Prep defense, which we were so worried about stopping the run after what happened at the end of last season, and then in the Westside game, took a pretty big step forward. And they stopped the pass as well. Papio's quarterback intercepted twice, and then only 7 for 17, under 100 passing yards, and a 41% completion percentage. So lots to be excited about, and we'll see what happens when they come back.
Yeah, the defense for sure stepped up, but Prep is going up against a team that might secretly be a play spoiler to a lot of teams with championship aspirations. The Lincoln Southeast Knights started off their season against Kearney, and that was a really tight defensive game. They won that 14-10. They went and played Lincoln Southwest the next week. Their quarterback threw for 235 yards, and the defense held Southwest to 102 total offensive yards. And then against Grand Island, who, in my opinion, is a pretty solid football team, they beat Grand Island 35-10 with one of their running backs, Nigel Bridger, getting 174 yards. So this team can really hit you from all angles. Their quarterback, McGinnis Schneider, kind of dual threat guy. He scored at least 1 rushing or passing touchdown in each of their games so far. So it's going to be interesting to see how Prep's going to game plan for this one.
Yeah, Lincoln Southeast, well-rounded team. And one thing I was talking about with the quarantine, Prep takes their most difficult remaining game off the schedule with second-ranked Bellevue West, but then they come out and they've got another top 5 team in Lincoln Southeast. So the Knights 3-0. They're playing phenomenal defense, really well-rounded team.
Yeah.
Defense averaging under 7 points allowed per game in the first 3. And, you know, these have been top 20, top 15 teams they've been playing early on. So
yeah,
they're a heck of a football team.
Stepping up, too. It's not like Schneider, their quarterback, or any of the running backs are in a scenario where it's like, listen, you have to throw for 200, 300 yards or your team's going to lose. But they're throwing for 200 or rushing for 170. Anyway, this team, it frightens me less than Papillion La Vista, which is ironic because Papillion La Vista was arguably the worst team But I just think that with Lincoln Southeast, I feel like if the run game can be stopped, then it's going to be far easier to beat them.
Yeah, and the run game really got hot last week. Nigel Bridger, their senior running back, ran for 174 yards and 2 touchdowns last week in the blowout win over Grand Island. So, there wasn't a huge run game going for Lincoln Southeast prior to that game, but they see, we have Prep on our schedule next week. Let's crank up the run game so that we can go into it. Prep's a defense that's historically struggled with the run, so it'd be interesting to see what they can do to try and stop him.
Yeah. And another one of the problems with Prep being able to stop the Knights' offense is that there's just so many guys that could at any point take over the game. Schneider could take over the game. Bridger could take over against Lincoln Southwest. 4 different guys had a touchdown. So there's a lot that could happen. And there's a lot of guys that could step up, but luckily Prep's got that too. Obviously, you've got Bullock. On the offensive end, Sam Eisenberg, I think, had an incredible game 2 weeks ago, proved that he deserved to be the starter and be the leader of this team. And I think that it's going to be an interesting game.
Yeah, for sure. There's going to be another watch party for it. Student Council has held 2 so far for the first 2 games. They've got another one coming in the Commons once again this Friday night. The theme is blackout, that's why I'm wearing black today. And 8:15 actually the game starts this weekend.
Ooh.
Yeah, so the first 2 games have been 7, but the stadium, Seacrest Field, which is used by Lincoln Southeast, is used by a lot of the Lincoln teams down there. So
yeah.
Late start, 8:15. So fortunately Friday night, not a school night. But
yeah. Well, it is a cross-country meet night, at least for me.
Yeah.
Although, even though it is late start, if we could commentate, I'd still love to go. But
for sure.
Unfortunately, there will be no commentary this week. Next week, though,
Yep.
At least that's what we're being told.
Yep. Yeah, we tried to get the Lincoln Southeast game, but they are very, very strict about their guidelines down there for COVID-19. We were supposed to do the Bellevue West game, but obviously that got canceled due to the quarantine. But so far, we're looking good for Millard West. It's going to finally be Prep's first home game next week. So can't wait for that.
And don't worry, all of the commentary fans, you will get to hear our beautiful voices soon. Just keep listening to the podcast if you're really that desperate. But we're going to get at least a few live streams done this season.
Yep. And then basketball too, and who knows? It's a long way off, but spring sports, we'll see what we can do. It's going to be a lot of fun though.
Golf.
Yeah, golf.
Get some extra credit for Mr. Raskershek.
Yeah, he would love that. Of course, Mr. Raskershek, our Media Production 3 teacher at Creighton Prep, and also the Creighton Prep golf coach. Creighton Prep won the Golf State Championship 2019 under Mr. Raskershek. So, yeah.
We just have to
do some golf. I'll take any sport at this point. I'm dying to do a game right now.
We'll just have to turn the voices down a little bit. Instead of going, we have to go, look, here's a nice drive there by Creighton Prep. They're on the green.
Yeah.
So that might be a difficult part.
Yeah, for sure. Some of those basketball games last year. But anyway, Prep ranked number 9th. Lincoln Southeast ranked 5th in Class A, and they are going to do battle on Friday night, so it should be interesting. Now, the part I'm most excited for is that first quarter to see how Prep comes out. You mentioned how Mr. Fife said, Coach Fife said that Prep is going to be benefiting from the quarantine because they're going to be rested up. They had some injuries in that opening week game against Westside, but maybe there'll be rust or maybe it'll be rests. That'll help. So we'll see if it's beneficial or negative for Prep.
Yeah, there are 2 ways that it could really go down. Either Prep comes out like the best we've seen them so far this season because they're rested, they're prepared, they know exactly what the game plan is, or they come out and they look a little sluggish and they've got to wait until the second half to really get going, which wouldn't be like the worst thing in the world because as we saw against Papillion La Vista, it's okay if they're a second half team, but whichever happens, I'll be looking forward to watching the game.
Yeah, so while Prep has been quarantined football-wise, tennis and cross-country have had you covered. Tennis has had quite a busy week. Invitational on Monday. They've had duels against Papio on Wednesday and then Pius X on Thursday. Meanwhile, cross country's had 4 meets in the last week, so been very, very busy for those two, while football has been off the field.
Yep. But there's one football that hasn't been off the field. The NFL.
Yeah, how about that?
Great to see it.
Yeah, we didn't know if we would get to week 1, but NFL is back, college football is back. We just got the news that the Big Ten is going to be starting its season on October 24th, so they went backward on their call to cancel the season, and now they're going to be playing, I think it's an 8-game schedule, starting October 24th, so big weekend.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, so the NFL week 1 started Thursday night, September 10th. Kansas City Chiefs hosting the Houston Texans in the rematch of that divisional round game, which saw Kansas City erase a 24-0 deficit to win 51-31. But Thursday night, there was no deficit to be erased except 7-0 at the start. Chiefs rolled to a 34-20 victory, and they looked really, really good. Mahomes only had to throw for 211 yards, but the story was the rookie running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of LSU. Chiefs drafted him 32nd overall, and he ran for 138 yards and a touchdown.
Leading the league after 1 week. Yeah. The worst possible thing for the rest of the NFL was this team getting a running game, and now they've got a running game. That 34-20 score is so misleading, I can't even begin to describe it. When I turned the game off, it was something like 27-7. That game was not a 14-point game. And then Sunday, another MVP candidate, Russell Wilson, played in the Seahawks-Falcons game, a 38-25 victory for the Seahawks. Wilson threw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. DK Metcalf, the rookie sensation from last year, he's back. He caught a touchdown. He had 95 receiving yards. Good game for the Seahawks. And in a very, very tough division in which all 4 teams have a reasonable path to the playoffs, Seahawks might be the team to beat.
Yeah, we thought it would be the 49ers, and they played in a divisional game against the Arizona Cardinals. 49ers, of course, defending NFC champions, nearly won the Super Bowl, but had Patrick Mahomes not been on the other side to orchestrate that comeback. But 49ers lose to the Cardinals with the additions of DeAndre Hopkins at wide receiver, of course, in that trade with Houston. Cardinals beat San Francisco 24-20. Kyler Murray looked phenomenal. Had some great runs, had some great throws. And then meanwhile, the Rams beat the Dallas Cowboys, which is most people's favorites for the NFC East division winner. The Rams take care of Dallas 20-17. Controversial offensive pass interference call, but Rams get the job done, and the NFC West is really anybody's game. It could produce 3 playoff teams.
For sure. For the other divisions, the ones that are a little bit weaker, 2 divisional matchups for the NFC North this week. The 2 teams battling it out for 3rd place in the division basically every single year, Chicago and Detroit. Mitch Trubisky turned out to have a pretty decent game, which I wasn't really expecting. The Lions had a 23-6 lead going into the 4th quarter and still somehow lost. Trubisky slinging the ball around. I don't really know what that means for either team. I think it's a little too early to say, but I don't think either of them are making the playoffs. I thought that Stafford might have been an MVP candidate at the start of the season. It's clear that he's not. But the other MVP candidate in that division, Aaron Rodgers, did prove himself. He kind of looked very upset that guys like Jordan Love and that was the quarterback, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. 364 yards, 4 touchdowns. Devontae Adams, 14 catches, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns. 9-point win over the Vikings, but that wasn't really that close either. The Vikings scored 24 points in the 4th quarter to make it look respectable. Also, that's a scoregami, 43-34. That's the first time that's ever happened in NFL history.
Really?
But yeah, the Packers once again look like the team to beat in the NFC North.
Yeah, and then NFC South, we had a big matchup down in New Orleans at the Superdome. Tom Brady making his Buccaneers debut at quarterback, of course, 6-time Super Bowl champion at quarterback with New England. Then he goes to Tampa Bay, faces off with Drew Brees in week 1, and Brady threw 2 interceptions, including a pick 6. The Buccaneers offense just really didn't look like they were on the same page, and New Orleans didn't really miss a beat at all, and they win 34-17, I believe, in that game. 34-23, New Orleans won that. So,
and that shows you how.
Go ahead.
That shows you how the preseason can be, because Brady, obviously, and Rob Gronkowski new to the Tampa Bay offense, new to Bruce Arians' system. But the Saints, they've got a lot of continuity, so their offense could come out there and just do what they do. But Tampa Bay looked a little rough. Arians said there was some miscommunication. So hopefully for Tampa Bay fans, Brady is able to figure out his receivers.
Yep, still plenty of time left, but a lot of people think it's going to be New Orleans and Tampa Bay duking it out for that division title down in the South. And New Orleans wins game 1, 34-23. And then the other team, the NFC South, which you haven't mentioned yet, the Carolina Panthers, with Teddy Bridgewater making his debut at quarterback. They faced off with the Las Vegas Raiders in their first game as a Las Vegas team. And the Raiders beat Carolina 34-30, and it was a questionable play call by rookie head coach of the Panthers, Matt Rule, to run fullback dive on 4th and 1 on the final drive of the game instead of handing off to the best running back in the league, Christian McCaffrey. So he's being questioned heavily. The Panthers lose that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were a lot of questionable coaching decisions this week. We'll get to you already talked about the Cowboys, but Mike McCarthy's decision to go for it on 4th and 3 with 11 minutes to go in the fourth quarter when he could have just tied the game. That's being looked at by Cowboys fans. And speaking of the Cowboys, let's go to their division, the NFC least. The Washington football team is unbeaten as of right now. Carson Wentz had an awful game. Of course, you can't blame it all on him. He was missing like half of his offensive line and a lot of skilled position players as well. But 8 sacks for the football team. Chase Young looking like a very good player already. And after the Giants lost to the Steelers on Monday night, the football team is leading the division.
Wow. Can you believe that? Anything can happen any given Sunday, but man.
That's true.
Yeah. And Ron Rivera, the head coach of the Washington football team, had to get an IV at halftime, and he still was able to will his team to the victory over the Eagles, a playoff team from last year, and the winner of the NFC East from last year. So big win for Washington to start.
And Rivera's not the only feel-good story on the team, too. Remember, Alex Smith had that broken leg a couple years ago, almost died from it, and now he's coming back, and he might get some action this season, too. But very good win for the football team. I'm not saying I'm a fan, but I was impressed.
Yeah.
Heading over to the AFC. The AFC South looks as crazy as ever. We already mentioned the Texans' loss, but Jacksonville and Indiana in the in a really rough matchup. Gardner Minshew said, "What tank? I'm still here." 19 of 20, 3 touchdowns, and Phillip Rivers, new uniform, same old guy, I think. 2 picks, including a backbreaker on a drive in which the Colts could have tied the game. That's kind of rough. And then the Titans, the only team in the division to get a win, despite Steven Gostkowski missing quite a few kicks, he was able to get the game-winning field goal after some questionable clock management by Denver's Vic Fangio. Had all 3 timeouts with 3 minutes to go. Didn't use a single one as the Titans drove down and ended the game.
Yep, and then rounding out the AFC, Buffalo Bills take care of the New York Jets at home, 27-17. Josh Allen looked pretty good aside from 2 fumbles. And then Baltimore Ravens, last year best regular season team in the NFL, they beat the Cleveland Browns 38-6 behind an awesome performance passing and rushing from the defending MVP Lamar Jackson. So Baltimore's back, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, that's for sure. And the Browns are, of course, still the Browns. And then for another big rookie debut aside from Chase Young, Joe Burrow also made his Bengals debut and learned pretty quickly what it was to be a Bengal. Burrow had a solid game, 193 yards and a pick, also rushed for a touchdown. But when he gave his team a chance to win the game, the kicker missed a chip shot field goal and may have pulled a hamstring. In my opinion, I don't think he pulled anything. I think the injury might have been faked to avoid even worse treatment in the locker room.
Yeah, it wasn't really a welcome to the NFL moment. It was more of a welcome to the Bengals
Mhm.
moment for the
Yeah, that's
first
true.
overall draft choice. And then finally, final game to talk about, the New England Patriots with their brand new quarterback Cam Newton, 2015 league MVP. They beat the Miami Dolphins 21-11 to somewhat avenge that upset victory in week 17 that the Dolphins put on the Patriots. So Cam with 2 rushing touchdowns. The game plan looked like it fit him pretty well. He looked like
Yeah.
he fit the game plan quite well. So New England, who knows?
Hmm.
Maybe they can pull off the AFC East win once again, despite everybody thinking it's going to be Buffalo.
Yeah, episode 1 of Belichick versus Brady goes to Belichick. He was able to win, Brady wasn't. All right, and now it's time for a new segment. This is going to be the first time we're doing this. Any hot takes that you got from the first game of the season? Obviously, some of these are going to be a little crazy, some of them are going to be a little obvious, but anything from the first week that you think bodes well or bodes badly for the rest of the season?
I think the NFC West is going to produce at least 3 playoff teams. I really think it can. Philadelphia out of the NFC East was one of my picks to make the playoffs. They get squashed by the Washington football team, despite injuries, though. But NFC West was something else on Sunday. I mentioned the Cardinals beating the 49ers, heavy favorites to win that division, San Francisco. But Arizona wins it. Kyler Murray looked phenomenal. DeAndre Hopkins in his Arizona debut was just eating up the San Francisco secondary. And Seattle, Russell Wilson with an MVP performance at Atlanta. Talked about that. He could win MVP. Who knows? Seattle at this point looks like the front runner. And then the Rams, they've got all kinds of skill position players like Cam Akers, Malcolm Brown, their second string running back, looked really good. And then, of course, Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, and Robert Woods at wide receiver and tight end. They look like, who knows? They beat the Cowboys, so we'll see.
A lot of people forget this. They're only 2 years away from a Super Bowl appearance, and one they could have won if Jared Goff had made a decent throw to Brandon Cooks. Like, the Cardinals were the weak link in the division, I'd argue, last year, and then they went out and added DeAndre Hopkins. The only thing that's going to stop those teams from making the playoffs is the other teams in the division, because that's just going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah.
For other NFC divisions that are going to be a bloodbath, though not in the same way, I think that the Washington football team is going to finish top 2 in the NFC East and will contend for a wild card spot.
That's an interesting one. Yeah, because
I think one could argue that they've got the best front 4 in the entire league, and they showed it against Philadelphia. And the Giants still look like they're recovering from Eli Manning's retirement. Daniel Jones might be good, but we don't know yet. The Eagles, a lot of stuff going on there. And the Cowboys, I think the Cowboys are going to win the division by default this year, but I don't think they're going to be good. So the football team could make some noise.
yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. NFC West going to be a great division. And Washington and Jacksonville, the 2 teams that I had at the start of the season as my worst NFL teams for this year, win in week 1. So who knows what's going to happen going forward. We got 16 fun weeks to decide it. We got college football coming back, Major League Baseball approaching the playoffs, NBA getting to the conference finals, NHL getting to the Stanley Cup finals. So a lot going on. And then prep football coming back. So check it all out. It's going to be great.
Yep.
All right, so that about wraps it up for today, episode number 3. Head over to the watch party Friday night, RSVP by way of Creighton Prep Student Council's Twitter page, and check it out, 8:15 p.m. in the Commons. Once again, Creighton Prep, Lincoln Southeast. Should be a lot of fun.
Yep.
All right, well, that's it. Episode number 3 is over. Thank you for joining us today, and we will see you next week.